So what we were going to do is we were going to talk about the ACT and what the different questions, where they relate to our curriculum, because we are all trying to finish up our curriculum and we've got 6 weeks left, for real. I think until our seniors are going to start checking out, for those of us that have seniors. Okay, and then everybody, we've got Thanksgiving, and you know Thanksgiving's kind of like spring break. Once they come back from Thanksgiving, they're done. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through this PowerPoint and we're going to look at some of the different questions and see where they are. And we're going to continue on with that professional development that we had with the ACT trainer from Mastery Prep. So that's why I called this Act Now. And then after we do this and combine it with our MDC, we'll talk about what we've got in our curriculum guides. I wanted everyone to kind of look back at your curriculum guide to just so you could reevaluate, because I had to self-evaluate, like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to get to this, I'm not going to get to this, what am I going to do, what do I pick and choose? So I went and talked to Scott, and then we talked to John and Jimmy, and so now we were going to talk to you guys out in the annex, and then talk to you and see what we can do to help you, because I know your classes are all over the place, and they're all in the same classroom at the same time. So, I just want to reiterate, making sure that every time we create a lesson, we're using these 5 key strategies for effective formative assessment. Now, I gave a lot of these little posters out. I have mine over there. They're really small. But I wanted to try to just make sure that every time we do this, every time we make a lesson, that we are keeping these in the back of our brain as we're doing the lesson, or as we're having to try to revamp a lesson because of the RTI. So the very first one was clarifying, sharing, and understanding goals for learning and criteria for success for learners. And then, if we wanted to sum that up, what's a cute little ditty that we could say for this to help us remember what we're supposed to be doing? What did we say? Clarifying, sharing, and understanding goals for learning and criteria for success with learners. That's basically, I think Jimmy said earlier, caring is sharing. So, caring is sharing. We care about these kids, so make sure that we are being clear, concise, and that we're sharing our goals so that they know that what we're doing, they're buying into what we're trying to sell. Because that's all we are. We are professional salespeople, for real. So then the next goal that we have to do is engineering effective classroom discussions, questions, activities, and tasks that elicit evidence of students' learning. So are we doing that? Are we creating classroom discussions and questions, and are our activities relevant to what we want them to get out of it? Okay? Is it just a worksheet for practice? Is it a worksheet to expand their knowledge? Or is it, whatever you want it to be? Is it doing what you want it to do? Because there are a lot of worksheets and a lot of tasks out there, but it's like we can use this little part and we can use this little part, but maybe not this middle part. So, if you need help with tools on the computer like snipping and something, trying to build your own worksheets, let me know. I can help you with the snipping, and I can help you with the printing and copies and the laminator. I can show you how we've been putting these MDC packets together to make it where it's reusable. Any ideas that we can put out there to make things reusable, so we're not making so many copies all the time, but making it relevant too for the kid, for the learning. So is there any little way we can sum this up, because that's a lot of words? Any way we can sum this up to tag it so that way we can remember it easier?
I would say quality, some type of, just to engineer discussion, you have to question them. Activities are a form of questioning.
Quality above quantity.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. Quality above quantity. You know what? With all of our input, we're going to be able to make our own PD. Quantity. I have the smartest department around. An Adobe license? Yes.
Like where you can cut and copy inside and say, like, I can redo my own PDF.
I
don't know if it's school there or not.
do believe there is, because I know of that being done.
Because like you said, there's some, like I get 2 PDFs.
We'll talk to Melanie.
Like, version or whatnot.
Okay.
You can edit those, right? You can have the license. The whole
Yes,
software.
you can edit it. Quality above quantity. I like it. Now, the next thing is providing feedback that moves learning forward. Providing feedback that moves learning forward. Well, that's basically our formative assessment, isn't it? Or is it providing feedback that moves learning forward? Or do you guys interpret that a different way?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically doing our formative assessment. Now, not formative like the MDC stuff necessarily. I mean, I guess they are, but that's more of a long term, but maybe a short term providing feedback. Because our MDC lessons, to me, are not the formative assessment we're used to. It's not the fist of 5 and all those things that people, the clickers like I use, things like that. Okay, activating students as owners of their own learning. Surely we can come up with something cute for that. You break it, you bought it. Sorry. Activating students as owners of their own learning. You got nothing better to do today, you might as well learn.
Sounds broad, some type of student engagement.
Mm-hmm.
For them to engage, they have to become owners.
Yes, the fan is moving. I mean, the air, when the air is on, it makes that move. So, activating students as owners of their own learning. Basically, it's their own benefit, so. Why you here?
Why you here?
I like that. Why you here? No, I mean, they can be funny.
Why you here?
It is true.
Unless
I mean,
you are going to learn.
so why you here and where you want to be?
My mama makes me.
That may be true, but still, you know, that's why I tell my kids.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
Why you here? So while you're here, there we go. That's what I told my kids. I said, you know, I said, even if I am boring you to death, at least if you're writing, it's taking up time. I said, that's how I survived history in college, is that I just wrote down every word they said because I was not listening. And that way, if I chose to go back and look at it later, that was my choice. But it kept me awake. So while you're here, ... I like it. Activating students as learning resources for one another. Again, that's kind of sharing is caring, isn't it? Sharing is caring. That's kind of redundant, but is there anything else while I'm writing that out that you guys can think of? Activating students as learning resource. I mean, that's the whole reason why I did tables, y'all.
We're all in this together.
Oh my gosh. We're all, start clapping, y'all. We're all in this together. John, I know you can clap better than that. We're all in this together. Oh no. We got to hear that yesterday from Mr. Blaylock. I'm good. We're all in this together. There we go. So then, that leads us to the math pirates. Okay, y'all know what the math pirates are, right? Too late. It's our classroom. Are you not a member of our classroom page yet?
I am.
Oh.
That's what you embarrassed. Just keep on looking, right?
Yeah. We're all in this
I'll
together.
know not to speak up next.
No, it's okay.
Sharing is caring.
That's right. We're all in this together.
It is.
Catch me up.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that you are having to do now, and I'm not signed in because I'm a poor planner, which I was signed in, but I forgot I logged off the computer. So, you know, you are dealing with a lot, and so it gets to be overwhelming, and it will take you probably 2 years to get caught up with it, where everything is, and everything keeps changing around here. So, remember, this is our math pirates. This is our little, our classroom, our Google Classroom. Our, and it's not showing the whole screen, which is sad, because there we go. Isn't that cute? So, if you notice down here, yesterday I added some placement tests because that's what the kids are now more concerned with the placement test, because if they're not making an 18 or a 19 in math when they go to college, even Jeff State or somewhere else, they got to take a placement test. And used to, we could look anywhere online and pull off a bunch of paper placement tests and not be a problem. No, everybody's gone online. So these kids are having to take placement tests online. And they have to, some of them have to go to a testing site, and they can't use a calculator. And so what I did is I found some smaller colleges that have their placement tests, and I just wanted to get an idea of what they're doing, because our resident college teacher, Scott, that's teaching at Jeff State math classes, he's telling me about how their curriculum is even changing. Just as ours is changing, their crap's changing too. And I figured, hey, math is math. Why is it changing in college? But it is. So this was from Barton College, and it made me think of the Barton Bellas. So that's why I had to pull it up. But, you know, some of these questions are pretty easy. And so then it just starts out really quick, and then it jumps straight to the meat. Okay, so I wanted us to look at that. And then, good save on yourself there, John. General Mathematics Academic Placement Testing Program. A few websites pulled this up, and it's kind of like preparing for the ACT. Whoopsie. I don't know how to use this computer. So it's kind of like getting ready for the ACT is what their website looked like. And I can't scroll down fast enough. There we go. So, see, it jumps into a bunch of different problems too, but notice that it's a ton of basic type algebra skills. And the reason why I want you to look at this is I want you to look at this and say, hey, are we teaching this in Algebra 1 or are we teaching this in Algebra 2? Where is this being taught, and have I covered some problems that are like this? Okay, so as you're teaching these kids, even the seniors that are in Algebra 2, a lot of them are still planning on going to Jeff State. They may not this year, but save some money next year. Pell Grants are being more easily available now than they used to be. So even those kids are going to be trying to go. And then I found this guy. This is the Mac Daddy of all of them. And the reason why I pulled him up, a ton of colleges are using him, but notice who he's put out by. The College Board. AccuPlacer is the new system that a lot of colleges are using, and it's put out by College Board, who does the AP credit. And this test is a lot harder, and it is online. It's a lot more intimidating. But I couldn't actually look at questions. Well, they did have some practice questions, and then when I looked at the practice questions, I was like, ooh, I'm glad I'm not going back to college. Because it actually looks like the College Board site we used to go to, where we look at those questions, and they were all higher level class questions. But this has something that you might can show some of your kids, or even those of you that have kids, as your kids are getting ready for school, this is something for you to look at. Like, because they have the writing samples. They've got next generation arithmetic. I was like, next generation arithmetic? What happened to old generation? I don't know. And then this next generation reasoning, algebra, and statistics sample questions. I looked at that and I was like, where's John? I need John. Because I couldn't answer some of the questions because I haven't had stats in a while.
The flip side of this, with the AccuPlacer, just as a FYI.
Oh, please, because I don't know that much. I just learned
Not only is College Board giving the placement tests, but the the remedial math courses and remedial English courses are such a moneymaker for the universities and for the colleges. But because they're doing so many of them, they can't staff it and pay it for them, because nobody's going to adjunct like an 090 or an 098. So they want to put them in a lab. So not only are they paying College Board for the placements, they're buying programs from College Board with the actual, it's kind of like Global Scholars, you know, or not Global Scholars, but Compass. Kind of like Compass. So not only College Board's placing them, but then College Board's also providing the curriculum on the other end of it. So it's a nice little bookend, so College Board's making bank. And then the colleges are also making bank because they're going to pay College Board for the program, but then they've also got to pay for tuition, which means they then have to charge a technology fee, so they have access, and then you get the log on and all that.
The technology fees are the expensive part of college
exactly.
now.
So, but I mean, the reason people are going with AccuPlacer is because if they can't do the question, then they have the pre and the post on. They don't have objectives; they have SLOs, student learning outcomes. And so they can instantly look and measure SLOs for the student before they promote them and go to the departments. So they're making it a lot better. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take over that.
No, I
didn't mean to
needed
question.
you. That's why we're here. We're all learning all this together. I just learned this because I took a half hour or an hour yesterday to go through some of this thinking, where are these placement tests? Because I teach seniors, so these last 5 weeks I'm thinking I'm going to start doing some placement tests, and some of my kids are graduating. I have 3 that aren't walking that are graduating.
If they go to Bama and they get placed in a remedial math, they go to a lab where they do everything on the computers. They have to log so many hours in the lab. It does not matter when they go or where they go, but they have to go to one of the labs on campus. And then they have 1 session a week with a grad TA, where they will answer questions or do like small little like tutorials. And then they go to the lab and there's always a grad TA in there that will answer questions for them. And like they have the whole, like they used to use the cups, like if you had a question you put a red cup on top of and the grad TA would walk around and answer questions, but they don't do that anymore. But you know, they like if you have a question, come see us.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not like go to class, sit in class, learn, take a test. It's at their own pace. So if they go a lot, you know, but they still have to go to the grad TA once they're finished with everything, and they
Right.
take a test in a testing bank, like where they go sit for the test in like a different room somewhere else.
They're actually making money off of that because they are probably paying less than they would if they had a professor doing it.
Yeah.
A lot less.
Because a lot of the grad
Because they're just
TAs,
paying for the
that's their
program, that's
assignment.
it, and that's.
Like that's their hours that they work. They go in and they work. Oh, I work from 8 to 12 in the math lab
Huh.
in one of the computer centers. And we're talking like four gigantic computer labs where it's like 50 computers, and you go in and there's people just sitting in there doing remedial math.
Wow.
So
Well,
So they're going to have to start learning to, you know, learn virtually pretty much on their own, independent learners.
and they get and the way that they're fighting that is they're getting the tutor that one day, but the problem is that when they're getting a tutor, it's normally someone from the math department that's a grad TA. It's not like they're getting somebody that's, you know, like a teacher. They're getting a grad TA who's there getting a master's of math. It's not like they're using the education people to go do that. They're using
Right.
the graduate school for the math department. So, kind of like when you get the people doing the chemistry labs that are chemistry GTAs, they're not necessarily great teachers, they're great minds. So,
yes, they may not speak student like we have learned how to do. We've learned to speak 5 different languages in one class.
so Russian.
Well, on this is the ACT test now. So I wanted us to look at some of these questions. I analyzed it so you could see where things are being taught and what these questions mean, because that's what all these kids are doing. They're all taking the ACT. All the juniors are taking it in the spring. Okay? A lot of the sophomores took the PSAT and were like, oh, there was Algebra 2 on there. And these were my 10th graders. And some of them aren't even in Algebra 2 yet. But, you know, that whole discussion about our schedules for another day. So, like number 4. If you look at number 4, EA stands for early algebra. And AG stands for intermediate algebra and coordinate geometry. And then GT stands for geometry trig. If you look on the last page, second to the last page, I guess, for you guys, the last page, yes, on the very last page, if you look at the bottom right, notice on the bottom right, 45% of the test, of this test right here, and the percentages run consistent. I looked at all the tests, and they're in the 40s. 40% of the test is what they consider pre-algebra or elementary algebra. And elementary algebra is like our Algebra 1, I would say.
Yeah.
Okay. 32% of the test is intermediate algebra and coordinate geometry. So that's kind of like advanced algebra 1 or algebra 2. Okay, some of them I thought, oh, well, we teach this in algebra, but then this other stuff that they say is AG. I'm like, oh no, that's algebra 2 or, you know, pre-cal. It's taught in pre-cal. So then the last one is plane geometry or / trig. That's 23%. So 23% of this class or this test is geometry. Probably even more because a lot of it's going to be in the AG part too. A lot of the geometry that deals with the coordinate plane. So this first question, number 4 right here, I looked at it and I said, okay, given f is equal to c times d cubed, f is this, d is this, what is c? So basically they're solving it for c. So that's a literal equation. Our kids hate solving literal equations. They hate them. But which category do you think this is in? Do you think this is an EA, an early algebra, or do you think it's AG, algebra with geometry? What do you think they consider it? Anyone?
I would
Don't
say
cheat.
early.
Don't cheat. Don't look at that last page.
I would
It's-
say they classify that as early.
I know,
They
Miss
do
Fitz.
it in algebra too.
Actually, y'all have the answers in the back. You thought it's algebra 2?
I said
I taught this in algebra 2. I bet they say it's early algebra.
So wait,
I think it's early algebra.
It is. It is early algebra.
okay, so sorry. Do you want me to look at the question by what the pure way of solving it, or do you want me to look at it solving it like it's on a test?
Solving it like it's on a test.
So solving it like it's on a test, from the ACT perspective, is you don't ever worry about solving it like a literal equation.
No. The kids, though, unless they've had test-taking skills, you know, we have to look at it both ways, John, because the general, you know, we've got 320 juniors that are going to take this test, and maybe 100 of them are in that math class, you know,
Yeah.
both semesters. So
Yeah.
maybe only a third of our kids are going to get in the ACT prep. So only a third of our kids are going to know how to do test-taking skills
Right.
if they were even paying attention.
Well, so that's where we should do it in our room.
So,
So like what I would have told my kids to do is, the thing about the math test is that the answers are always in order from either least to greatest or greatest to least. So if they're asking you to solve for C, then you would just take one of these and then plug it in with the D value. So always start with G or J since they're in order. So if you plug in the G and you've got 4.5 times 10 cubed, that's calculator keystrokes. If that number is bigger than 450, then you automatically know the answer is F. Because if it's bigger, then you need a smaller answer.
right.
But if that one doesn't work, you skip down here. And so if it's too small, then you would skip to this one and then you decide, okay, well, if this is too big, then the answer has to be that one. If this one's too small, then it has to be that one. So that's the test-taking strategy. The biggest one for the math portion, if it's a plug and chug, is you always go with B or D, and then if it's too big, go down. If it's too small, go to the next
Well,
one.
see, I've learned something today because I know how to plug stuff in, but I never thought of reasoning through rather to try B first and then, you know, talk about the
And then
value.
You don't ever have to test every single one because they don't have time to test every single one.
No, they don't.
So, but no, I mean, not to take away from the early algebra business, but I mean, that's the first thing I always teach kids when we're doing these like warm-ups and stuff like that.
Right.
That's, you know, use that test taking, because it will hold true for the math regardless.
And see, and a lot of our really, really smart kids that aren't good classroom kids will follow that way in a heartbeat. And then a lot of my good accountants is what I call them. They're going to see that and they don't care. They're still going to solve for C because that's just the way their brain works. And that's what we got to work with. So this is actually taught in Algebra 1 and it's taught again in Algebra 2. And this is taught in science because science always says we don't teach this and we know we do. And it's taught in 8th grade. But this is something that they struggle with forever. But so this is a problem that maybe we go through and we, you know, talk about the test strategy and talk about the real way to do it both ways to give the kids their a better opportunity to get the problem right. Because it is number 4. Nothing like being on number 4 and saying, oh shoot, I don't know what to do. And then you've already got a bad mindset for the rest of the 60 problems. Number 5, we think that's, what do we think that is?
Early algebra.
No, they call it AG. To me, number 5 is easier than number 4.
It is.
It is, but this is an Algebra 1 concept where you start dealing with functions.
But it threw my algebra 2 when I taught it. It took them a while to even
Yeah.
look at it and just like, duh. You know?
They want to make 3x plus 7 to the second power equal to 1.
They're so used to seeing parentheses next to a letter, they think multiply. They're thinking multiply F times 1. Yeah, they see that, and I'm just like, no, not this time, you know. I get where they say it, but it's just like, it blew my mind that it just seems so obvious to me. The X has been replaced with 1, so replace all the X's with
Mhm.
But that's just not how
It isn't obvious to them, and it befumbles me too, because I'm sitting there and just look at it like, look what's gone, look what's here, look what's gone, look what's here. And they're like, okay, so I set it equal to 1. No. But, but this is an Algebra 1 concept, and this should be an easy problem. And this, again, is a test-taking strategy, I think, that we just need to hit home, okay? Every test I've seen has one of these. Every ACT test I've seen has one of these, okay? So, the next one, number 9. You notice I wrote them on some of them, and then some of them didn't. Number 9, what do we think number 9 is?
What's the GT?
Yeah.
Geometry.
Geometry trig,
Yes.
and AG is algebra geometry.
Uh-huh.
I would say AG. If I had to guess, that's a volume problem.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Let me just read it.
Yes, let's read it.
Pulling my
Just
kids.
basic.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm dangerous with this, having taught
Oh,
ACT
okay.
prep.
What do we think now?
So, is that early algebra?
Yeah.
It is. It's early algebra. Yeah, how many of our kids are going to sit there and start multiplying that crap out? Hopefully luckily that answer's not on there.
They're going to see a 3D picture, see 3 numbers, think volume, just
Right.
not multiplying.
Uh-huh. When really it was just early algebra. What was it? Just a division problem?
Yeah.
Yep.
You divided it?
You take out your initials and then divide.
So, that's the one thing that we've really got to, and so that's why I really hope that we're all pushing annotating. Whenever we're doing these problems, every problem my kids do, I make them annotate on it. If it's got more than the word solve in it, they're annotating. So every time they see f of x, they highlight f of x and they write plug in for x. So that way we're trying to break that bad habit of what we saw in that earlier problem. So, use like English does, annotate on it. Your kids will know it. Number 12, if you look at number 12, the length of a rectangle with area 54 square centimeters is 9 centimeters. What is the perimeter of the rectangle in centimeters? No.
This is you want pure, you want test.
I want what they think it is. It's a test-taking strategy in a way, but I think it says what is the perimeter. So you got to, it's a level 2 problem. It's level 2. You got to do 2 steps. Because you got to find the width first. And then you got to use the length and the width with the perimeter. So, it is a level 2 problem. The level 2 geometry ones are usually GT. Okay, this is a GT problem. But we don't teach this in geometry, do we, Priscilla?
No.
We don't get to it. Or we don't. So what I've done is I've started doing this stuff in Algebra 2 again, where we compare perimeter and area. Now, my problems are a little bit harder than this, but at least it's in context where they say, oh, I've got area and I've got perimeter, so I've got 2 things I have to do. So also when you're making out your problems, start thinking about levelizing them. Have y'all been through level training, like level 1, level 2? I did it a few years ago at somewhere. I don't know where we were, Hueytown or somewhere. I did it in the lunchroom for the whole thing. It was ACT level. I don't know, were y'all with us yet in Jefferson County?
Yeah.
Oh, you were? Y'all remember me?
Oh, no, I don't remember.
You don't remember me?
But I remember going through DOK 1 and all that.
Yeah, so that's what it is DOK. So this is kind of like a DOK 2 problem. My thing just reconnect. Gardendale. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is also one of those situations where the mid step of the problem is in the answer choices. When we were teaching, if you'll show them how many times that happens, the midway calculation number is one of the answer choices, and it's always one that kind of sticks out. And say, here's the midway calculation. Well, you don't even have to do the calculation.
Because you find the one that sticks out. and
You find the
use
one that sticks out, you use that to do the next step of the calculation. So they're giving you the midway point as the distractor, and then take the next step from that point. Sorry.
No, that's fine. That's a good thing.
That's
And as we
very
said,
interesting.
as our,
That's the only way you get like these kids that are, and that's the only way these kids that are trying to get to like 30s and 32s and stuff, like
That's how
That's
they
the
get to it.
tips and tricks they give them. It's just like the midway calculation is one of the answer choices. You've got to pick the one that doesn't fit and go with that. So,
I wish I had that one. We were taking it.
no.
Right?
Number,
Yeah, paid for it.
oh, I know. Number 14, Antoine drew the, we had some technical difficulties, but it's back on now. Antoine drew the circle graph below describing his time spent in school in one day. His teacher said that the number of hours listed were correct, but that the central angle measures for the sectors were not correct. Oh, no. Yeah, don't get to this. I don't have time. I do in second block. So again, fighting for a 7-period day. But I got to it in general geometry one year. The last year I got to general geometry in second block, but I had, in my honors class I always got to it on second, but my other upper level kids I don't get to. So this is something that we've got to, no, they've shortened our time this year,
Yeah.
our bell schedule. So, but this is something that's on this, it's on it. So maybe it's something you could bring up as a bell ringer or something, Priscilla, that's what I do, is I just bring them up as bell ringers. So, but that's definitely a geometry. That's our geometry. I wanted her to see that because that stuff is on there. And we're going to run through the rest of these pretty quick. Number 24, because I promised you I wouldn't keep y'all forever. Number 24, it's, they call that early algebra. But my kids would see that p squared and they're like, we're factoring that puppy, So they consider that an early algebra skill. Makes a profit so that it's at least 60,000. So that means that we got to do what? You just got to kind of plug it in. So
Use that.
Use
Use the BD trick.
okay.
And also on this one, since you've got the 500, if you just drop those double zeros, you can also, since these all have a 0 on the end, you can drop a 0 off the end of this and just go with 10, 15, 20, 30, 60. And so if you want to do that and then do this, you can drop either the 2 zeros here and then do the plugins from that point and not have to, because that's the time waster, is they're wanting you to waste the time on getting all the zeros.
All the zeros, right. Yep.
So, and that's the same thing on that previous one that you did, with the 360, instead of thinking about any circle with 360, normally the numbers will be pretty. Like they're not going to be decimal numbers, and that's what I always told them. If you start getting weird decimal numbers, you're not going to get weird decimal numbers on the ACT. It's always going to be pretty. So when you're dealing with circles,
Because technically you're supposed to be able to use it without a calculator.
right. So if you're thinking like 360, drop the 0, just do 36. If you're thinking like 180, drop the 0 and just do 18. And normally the numbers will turn out to be relatively pretty.
Well, good.
Sorry.
No, that's
I
good.
feel like I'm hijacking.
You're not, this is not my show. This is our show. Why do you always think that? I mean, this
We're all
is,
in this together.
we're up. You want me to sing? Because I can not sing. There we go. In this together. Yeah, see, no, I quit. There's a reason why I'm here and not in California. Okay, 25 is just dealing with it's early algebra. 25 is the early algebra one, but it's a lot of numbers on it. It's a lot of percentages. So, but it's basically just dealing with percentages.
Category in which these expenditures were paid is what percent total expenditures? Yeah, okay, sorry, I had to.
I mean, it's one of those things where we have to read it. And that's why I also say, teaching the kids how to annotate a little bit will help them, because then they'll pick out the key points and they mark through the stuff that's crap. Okay, the distractors. Huh?
Action words.
Action words.
Keep a running list of action words. I had that for ACT prep in the words, just action words that they, as we found action words like greatest, and they had to write them down on the separate sheet. So.
Well, there we go. And then number 28. Number 28. That's obviously an Algebra 2 type problem. Okay? But notice that there are 2 or 3 curved graphs on this test. So I think they're adding more parabolas and some upper level. And that's what Scott was trying to tell us too. Scott's been saying that they're changing the way they're doing the intermediate algebra and the college algebra. That he said they're asking, knowing domain and range and dealing with pictures on graphs is more important than trigonometry, and that breaks my heart. But he said that's what they're having, the beginning math class that kids are taking is now more of this type of content and not like the trig, like we had right triangle trig. I know my pre-cal I took it as elective because I needed more and more elective. It was my very last class, and it was my favorite because it was nothing but trigonometry. He says it's not like that anymore. So that's the things that we've got to start talking about a lot with pictures. And then the imaginary numbers. Notice imaginary numbers come up on, this is only question 29, so we're not even halfway through the test and they're throwing imaginary numbers. I was going to not do imaginary numbers. I was actually going to take it out. He told me to finish quadratics, conics, then end with trig. And then yesterday he told me something about maybe switch the trig. So I got to talk to him again to get a straight answer out of him. But, you know, he said just touch on complex. They don't do matrices in college or in the pre-cal because we're also teaching these kids for the pre-cal for him. You know, we're trying to help him so he's not having to cover. Because whatever we don't get to cover, he has to cover before he can get to his material. So it's like we got a domino effect here. Mm-hmm. And we're all, you know, he's drowning at the top just as much as we're drowning in the middle. So complex numbers is something that's on there. Inequality graphs are on there. Notice these are systems of inequalities. Now, I know our algebra teachers are not here, but this was for them to see too, that we've got to make sure. I did not cover this in Algebra 2. That was something I chose to skip because I was thinking it's an Algebra 1 concept and it's easy and it's with graphing and it'll be something. But I probably made a bad judgment on this. I was, you know, what's more important, the conics or doing the inequalities? I don't like inequalities, so I, you know, just decided not to do the systems with my systems of equations. So maybe that's something I've got to start introducing as, you know, things that we are missing, introduce it as a bell ringer or something so they can at least say that they've seen it before, or at least lie to their teacher about seeing it before. Number 38. Number 38 would probably blow a lot of kids' minds because it's early in the test too, because it is a parabola. Now, not every kid gets to use a graphing calculator. One of our kids took one of our graphing calculators, and the batteries died in the middle of the test. And I tell them every time, take extra batteries, but they didn't. And so, and one of them, their graphing calculator wasn't working, and he didn't tell, like they got it when I wasn't here. He took it home, and you would be amazed at what these kids don't know. Brandon Harper, bless his heart, he's like, it wasn't working. I said, why didn't you text me or something or email me to remind, you know, try to get in touch with me and let me know. Just whatever, I just went and got another one, no big deal or whatever. He brought the calculator back to me. The batteries had corroded onto this thing, and so he didn't know to clean it. And he's a senior that drives. And he didn't know that that green stuff shouldn't be there. And so it's kind of like, you know, we take for granted some of the things, the little skills that they don't have. So then we expect them to do stuff like this. It's kind of crazy. But, you know, if he would have had that graphing calculator, he probably could have graphed this because he knows how to do that. But he ended up not having the graphing calculator. He had one of the little TI-30s or something that he had from 8th grade. So I just wanted us to look at that problem for a minute. I started reading it and then I quit because it was after 3 o'clock.
Well, this one's, I mean, yeah, this is an interaction problem.
Yes, it's an F.
Well, relationship, yeah, that's the action term here is relationship.
And that's what Scott says that a lot of them are not doing. They're not. And it may be that we need to come up with a nice little, like for Algebra 2, we come up with a nice little worksheet or something where we just talk about pictures. Mm-hmm. What do we see? You know, sometimes we do a what I see box. And for the word problems, for geometry, I did it all the time because there's a lot of stuff. I'm like, just give me all the vocabulary you know that might could go with this problem. So I know where you're at. And that's a good formative assessment of what I see. What vocabulary goes with this problem? You know, what do I know about this problem that I can use?
That's what me and Ms. Fitz was talking about earlier this morning. I did a brush over on chapter 5, you know, with the median, altitude, but everything was worded differently. So they didn't have the skill to go back and pick the main, you know, the keywords and say, oh, it's this because of this. It wasn't worded as like my notes were. Or I said, well, this is the median, what should happen? And they had to look at the picture and tell me exactly which angles are equal, which sides are equal. They didn't do as well, so it did show that that is a skill that is needed to be exposed to every now and then.
So maybe that needs to be more of our focus about stuff, you know? I mean, especially, well, here we go, given 42. This is something we teach in Algebra 1, but not quite that hard. Something I've taught in Algebra 2, but not quite that hard. It's something I taught in pre-cal, but again, I don't know if I gave them one with fractions over a fraction.
I'm starting to make them work on fractions.
So that may be something that we're just going to have to get uncomfortable with and start doing more of those fractions.
The fraction, and that's just going to destroy your world, but I don't know if I've gone that far with it.
That's the devil's
That's what we call it.
No, that's what I call it. Seriously, when you put a fraction over a fraction, it's the devil's tower. And once they do that, they're like, oh, you just drag in here. Oh, it's done. Yeah.
Yeah, well, maybe that's what.
Mm-hmm.
That's cute. I just call it the demonator.
The demon.
That's what I do. Demonator.
Well, and if they know how to do the fractions on the graphing calculator, that is a time suck on this test. And they will plug those fractions in, and it will end up eating up more time than you need to do these problems. If they
So
do
what's
that.
your suggestion? Change it to a decimal and make the calculator do the
Yep.
work, and then turn it back into a fraction?
Yep.
Okay.
And then once you have the decimal answer, then you do the fraction to decimal conversion on the graphing calculator.
I am learning, though, a lot of the kids don't know how to get to the fraction decimal conversion by hitting math. They're using the tab across the top. They're using the shortcut keys.
Alpha y equals
So
alpha y equals 4, fraction to decimal.
number 43. Number 43 made my head spin because I got tired of looking at it by then. But, you know, what I wanted you to, I mean, there's some more on here, and you guys have the answers. There's circles on here. There's radicals in the denominator, which is not really, that pertains to us, and we know what's on here. At the very end of it, see there's circles with lines, there's sign, there's a couple of sign problems. Oh, there were 2 on this one. And it ended up, one of them was, you know, the very last problem. And they give you that formula, but their eyes are bleeding by the time they get to this. And they just, I mean, you know, it's just being able to draw the picture.
The cosines in geometry, because I never had, I don't remember if it was lack of time or if it was.
It got added to our curriculum 3 years ago. And it's,
Normally it was in algebra 2, but it's.
yes. But see, parallel lines cut by transversal is in our curriculum, but it's in the 7th and 8th grade curriculum too. So technically, it's something we should not have to be doing.
Spent so much time on
Yeah. So, you know, it might be come to the point where we're going to have to take some time out. But honestly, it's like the devil here, because what's on the ACT is the parallel lines cut by transversal. Those are the problems our advanced kids are missing because they haven't had it in 4 years. Because you never get that ever again to refresh your memory about complementary or supplementary angles. Never, ever.
vertical angles. I saw a lot of, had a kid text me the other day, a former student, showed me a picture of a question, it was just a vertical angle problem. Just had to know that they're equal.
Yep. So, you know, it is what it is. I'll let you mull this over. I don't want to I know I've given a lot of information. If you look at the back of it, if you look on the very back, it gives all the right answers and it tells you where I got the data. And the last thing that I want to touch on is you have a table 1. Y'all see the table 1? The table 1, if a kid gets 30 questions right, she said that they make about a 19 or so. Well, every table I've seen, if they get 30 questions right, they make a 21. So if they can get 30 questions right, they can get a 21. Okay, and in most colleges that are still using the ACT, some of them are. It says they are, but I know they aren't because kids have told me they've had to go take a placement test. So, you know, a 21 should get them still placed in their first math class and not have to take a remediation class. But if you notice when we got to number 43, question 43 was where it really started getting tough. If they get 43 questions right, then what do they make on it?
What, 26, 27?
27? Okay, 27 is starting money. Pretty much most of the colleges now are giving some money for 27. Not a lot, but they're giving some money.
2/3 right.
So that's what our kids are actually trying for now, are the 27, 28. The 30 is more of a full ride. So some kids are like, oh, I'm going to go for 30. So if they get 30 questions right, they got to get at least 50. So look through those first 50 questions and, think about it as you're making your lessons and as I'm having you think about all this other stuff. But just think about what you could be doing if this were your child in your class to try to help them and help their parents save some money. Okay? That's all I want you to do is just kind of think about this stuff. Look at the questions that are on here. Look where they're at. Most of the AG stuff is taught in geometry and algebra 2. Okay, but there is 43% of it that is hard early algebra. Okay, so if you have any questions about anything, ask me. I will try to find an answer. I am slower than Christmas, I know, but I'm just like you guys trying to keep my head above water with all these 3 preps that I'm teaching and my lovely, lovely, lovely family. So, if you need any help performing the fouls, please let me know. And let me know when you're going to do it so I can provide feedback. I failed you guys, and I apologize. When y'all first did them, I didn't get to observe you, and I don't think anyone came to observe us. And so you didn't get any feedback on it. Doing these fouls without feedback, you might as well not be doing them because it doesn't help you if you don't get, we get to mark it off our list, but it's not helping the kids and it's not helping us. So, that was going to be part of our other discussion is what files do we want to kick out? What files do we think that we should definitely do? Look at their list. So if you find a good one or you find something that works well, let me know. If you look at one and you say there's no way that this really fits here, save us all the trouble and let us know. Okay? Because we're all in this together. We're all going to survive or we're all going to die. And I want us all to survive. Okay? All of us got our head above water right now and I want to keep it that way through May. Okay, any questions? Any comments? Any comments or anything else? Anything Amanda and Brooke and Landon should know or Scott, before I turn this off? Hope you're having fun until 5 o'clock in Tuscaloosa, Scott.
What's he doing?
I don't know.
Engineering training?
I have no idea.